Good morning, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me for another monthly net worth update. Today we are covering January 2025. Can't believe that it's already 1 month fully into 2025. But as per usual, let's go ahead and jump right into the numbers. My net worth at the end of 2024, December last year, was $132,090. The equity that I have in the condo I own here in Calgary sits at $60,731. This is an increase of $453 from December. My RRSP, my main retirement account, my registered retirement savings plan in Canada, sits at a balance of $66,594. This is a pretty significant increase from December of $3,588. I did not make any contributions within the last month, but I did in December of $2,000, and we're seeing some pretty good market gains over the last month in the main investment that I hold, which is the Vanguard All Equity Fund, VEQT. My DCPP, or Defined Contribution Pension Plan, this is left over from a job I had a few years ago, and that sits at $4,955, slight increase of $264 month over month. My cash account sits at $3,350. This is a decrease of $765. This decrease is coming from some spending overages. I've done a bit of travel over the last month, as well as just had a bit of higher expenses, which we're gonna get into later in the video. So I had to dip into this savings account in order to cover those things. I really do feel like I need to get my spending under control, especially in the coming months. I am potentially going to be moving and my expenses are going to be increasing. Hopefully my wages increase as well, but we'll talk about that in a little bit, so stay tuned. This brings my grand total net worth for January 2025 to $135,630. Pretty significant increase of $3,540 month over month. Really happy to see this. And again, this is only coming from market gains. You can see that I've had a little bit of a dip in my cash account. So all of this is coming from VEQT doing its thing. Super happy to see that, and really happy to see my net worth increase this much month over month, despite me having really high expenses. Now let's move on to income for January. I made $500 in rental income. I also made $245 in YouTube AdSense, $126 in the carbon rebate. This is a government rebate in Canada that you can qualify for if you're lower income. So I did get that in the month of January. I also made 2,200 Canadian dollars at my main full-time job. This is a little bit lower than normal. I typically make around $2,600 a month, but I had less shifts in the last month with holidays, and just it being a bit slower. I am an hourly employee, so this was a bit of a bummer, but I was able to take a bit more time for myself and enjoy those days off. That brings the grand total income for January to 3,071 Canadian dollars. And moving into expenses, my rent every month is 1,750 Canadian dollars. I also pay $222 in insurances. This is majority my vehicle payment of $138. I spent $340 on groceries. This is above the budget that I usually set of $300, so not too happy about that. I also spent $70 in gas or fuel for my vehicle, and I have a budget of $50 for this, so not crazy about that. I did a lot more driving around to certain things, to do certain shopping and go to different events, but I would definitely like to tighten this up. I spent $37 on my phone as per usual, $45 on home internet, and I spent $335 on entertainment. This is actually pretty decent. It's close to my budget of $300 a month, but I am gonna be reducing this budget amount to $250 a month going forward, and we're gonna talk about why in just a bit. I also spent $376 on travel. So I could combine this with my entertainment budget, but I wanted to separate it because I went away for a weekend back to my hometown of Ottawa, and I kind of spent more than I should have. I bought a few things I really didn't need, and I'm a bit disappointed in myself that I did that. But what can I say? I do get a lot looser with my spending when I am traveling, regardless of how close it is to home. So that is higher than I'd like it to be. but it's something I need to work on. I spent $203 in my miscellaneous category. This is better than previous months, but my budget for this is 150 Canadian dollars, so I would like to tighten this up as well. That brings the grand total of spending and expenses in January to $3,378. Again, you can see this is more than I made in the previous month, so this is not something I want to continue in the new year. And even though my net worth went up, I still feel like I have a lot of work to do. Let's go ahead and jump into some life updates. So number one, the biggest update over the last month, I did end up renewing my mortgage. I ended up staying with TD. I did everything online. Honestly, I've just been pretty burnt out and stressed over the last few months. And I really didn't want to go too crazy in shopping around my mortgage rate. I did talk to a couple of brokers, looked at a few different resources online, and the rate that I got through TD, through my current bank and mortgage institution, is 4.69% in a 3-year fixed closed term. And I wasn't really able to find anything better than this. And I could have probably shopped it around quite a bit more, but I think you do have to pay quite a bit in fees to switch to a different lender. So I ended up not doing that, and I'm happy with it. I feel like in the next 3 years, the rates are going to continue to go down. So hopefully in 3 years from now, I'm able to get a much better rate. This does mean that my mortgage amount every month is increasing from $657 to $864, and all of that increase is going to interest. Not crazy about that, but again, I feel like the gains that I'm getting through the market are much better than this. I always use a benchmark of 5% returns. So if my mortgage rate is going to be below 5%, I'm pretty much always going to put more money into the market versus putting it towards a early mortgage payoff. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is that I am probably going to be moving in the next 2 to 3 months. I'm really not mentally prepared for this yet, but I went through all the financials of potentially keeping my place as a rental property for the next year, with increasing the rent and me continuing to rent over the next year. It just financially doesn't make any sense, even with that increase in rent, because of how expensive it is to rent in Calgary. I would not really be making much money. You do need to pay tax on not only the profit in a rental property, but also the portion of your mortgage payment that goes towards the principal. So yes, I could write off the interest. However, I've done the math and it just financially does not make sense for me to continue to rent over the next year and rent out the property that I own here. There's a lot of little projects and furnishings and stuff I'd like to do in the place that I do own. So I'm kind of eager to get back in there. It's also much bigger than the place I live now, and my costs are essentially exactly the same as how much I pay in rent for a place that's half the size. I'm gonna be having a lot of visitors and people come stay with me in the next year. So I wanna have that space available to host them. That's one of the biggest reasons why I do wanna move back into this property. I think this is going to be one of the last, if not the last times I move, unless some really big things happen in my life where I'm gonna be moving in with someone else or something like that. But I want to move and just get it over with and hopefully lay some roots down in the place that I own. The third thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is work stress. So I have been mentioning in the last few videos that I have my dream job, I'm living my dream life, I'm happier than I've ever been in my entire life. However, work is really catching up to me right now. I am getting super burnt out. I'm typically at work between 9 and 10 hours a day, and I cycle to and from work even though it is winter. It is really starting to have its toll on me physically. I'm physically exhausted. Mentally, I am also getting to the point where I am burnt out. So I'm feeling not 100% happy in my situation at work at the moment. I have been requesting certain things like a raise because I do believe I am well underpaid for the work that I'm doing. And even though I'm not at this institution and I don't work in the industry I work in for money, it is at a point now where I feel like I need to be properly compensated in order for me to feel like I am fully valued for the work that I'm doing. I'm also taking a course in my industry in exactly the realm that I work in. So I feel like with me increasing my skill set, it should equate to me getting some kind of monetary compensation in my current job. We're about to go into the really busy season at work, into the spring and summer and even the fall, but it does mean that I might again need to take a step back from YouTube. I do feel like I haven't really been prioritizing it. I haven't been making as many videos as I'd like. I have a long list of ideas of content that I want to make, and I just feel like I don't have the energy to do it, which kind of sucks. And I'm also at the point now where I'm kind of relying on the income from YouTube in order to fund my life. So that is another thing that's becoming a bit of a problem, because I've always looked at YouTube as being like a passion project, something I do on the side because I enjoy it. And now that I'm sort of relying on that income, it's becoming not so fun for me to do it. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate. If you ever turn one of your passions or hobbies into an income source, it kind of ruins it a little bit. So I don't know what I'm gonna do about this, but stay tuned. I'd really like to find a way to balance both my regular work life and YouTube and get back into doing content that I really enjoy. So we'll see what happens in the next few months. The next thing I wanted to chat about is travel. So I'm probably not going to be going to Scotland this year. It's looking less and less likely. Basically, it comes down to me not being able to afford it. And the reason why I can't potentially afford this trip is because I have a summer trip coming up. I also have one of my family members potentially coming to stay in the summer for a little bit. So I'm putting some money aside. Because I am an hourly employee, I do not get paid vacation. I do by law get paid vacation out on every paycheck, a certain amount. It's like $36 a paycheck or something, that technically I should be putting that aside to like cover any time off that I have. But essentially, if I take any time off, those days are unpaid. So I have to factor that into when I do take time off. If I take 2 weeks off, I get no paycheck for those 2 weeks. So that does affect how I plan for things. And I also am in the process of doing my taxes for 2024. And it turns out, because of the rental property and the income that I make from that, or made from that in the last year, I owe quite a bit in tax. I'm owing like $1,000, and that's going to cut into my travel budget for the year. So it's looking like this trip to Scotland might not be possible in 2025. It might be doable early 2026, but honestly, at this point, I really don't have much interest in an international trip. I don't want to go and sit on a plane for 9 or 10 hours and go somewhere for a couple weeks. I am still quite burnt out from traveling for like over a year, not that long ago. It hasn't even been a year since that whole travel and living abroad thing has finished. So I just feel like I don't want to go anywhere too far away. We're gonna see how it goes. I'm still gonna be setting money aside for travel, but I think I want to do more local trips. I haven't really been out to the mountains in many months at this point, and I want to see certain things in my own backyard, in my own country first. So we might be putting that off for a little bit, which is, honestly, it's fine by me. Another option I have is to sell my van and put that money towards the Scotland trip. So we're gonna see how the summer goes and how I'm feeling in the fall before making any decisions. I also wanted to mention dating. I know some of you are interested in my dating life and how things are going in that realm. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I downloaded the Hinge app like last weekend. I had it for about an hour before I deleted my account and decided, nope, I'm not ready for this. I really don't want to make any compromises. I have a lot of work to do on myself still, and I just don't want to go through the whole charade of dating and going out and getting to know someone and changing my life for somebody else. I just want to make sure that I'm happy on my own first, and that I've worked through some of my issues, let's call it, and I just legitimately don't feel ready for that. So I am going to be postponing that probably for a few months. I am not going to be actively dating for a while. It's just not something that I want to prioritize at this point in my life. I mean, I'm open to things if they happen naturally, but dating to actually like find someone and doing the work and putting the time in to get to know somebody, I'm just not there yet. And that's my perfectly honest opinion on that at this point. So I hope you all enjoyed this video and you all had a great January like I did in terms of the market. And yeah, let's crush 2025. Thanks so much for joining me for this video, and I'll see you guys really soon in the next one. Bye.